So here we are, my new part has finally arrived after almost a month of waiting because it was on back order. My cam chain guide is here it is. This is the reason I haven't really been riding. And of course, now that I have it, it answers my first main question, which is, what is this stuff? Was originally what I was wondering. Now that I have this, I can see that it is in fact that. It's the same material, same kind of slightly pliable plastic, slightly flexible plastic, rubber material. But of course, as you look at the two of them side by side, and you look at the amount that I've taken out of the engine versus how big this thing is by itself, the obvious question is, where is the rest of it? So it looks like I'm going to be ordering up my oil pan gasket and having to do the oil pan. Luckily on this bike, I can do that with the engine in the frame, which makes it easier. I do have to take the cooling system off and the exhaust system off, but the fact that I can do it without having to take the engine out does make it a little bit easier, and really only cost me a gasket. So it will be peace of mind knowing that I don't have a lot of this stuff jammed up into my pickup screen, which even if it's only reducing your oil flow by 10, 15, 20%, over time that creates wear on the engine that's unnecessary. So for peace of mind driving longer distances, I want to know that everything's working the way it should be. So for the cost of an oil gasket and half a day's work, I think it's going to be worth it for peace of mind. So let's get started. So here we are, we're about halfway through the process. We've taken off the tank and the airbox. We're just loosening up the carbs, taking off the gas line, as well as taking off the throttle cables. So we're just ready to take that out. Then we're going to have to take out the plugs and the power packs, or the plug wires and the power packs, and at which point we'll be able to take the valve cover off. So now we have the carbs off, the battery packs and wires are off, so now all that's left is these top 6 bolts, and we'll be able to pop the valve cover off. So now we have the valve cover off, and the first thing you want to make sure of is that these plug seals here that sit on top, to make sure that they don't fall down in, you don't lose them. They should be right there. The other 3 stayed where they were, that one stayed on top. So just double check with those. And as of course you can see right there in the corner are the 2 little pegs that my cam chain guide sits on. And you can see, if you look at the distance there, it's a very small amount of distance really when you're doing it. But what's happening is whichever way it's spinning, the guide sits in here, and it stops this chain from wanting to go up as it comes over the top of the cam, as the cam's spinning at a really fast rate. It stops it from trying to throw itself upwards and just keeps the direction of force traveling smooth across the top. So probably not, obviously I've been riding it very lightly and very nicely without it on short little cruises just to get out for a ride, but for peace of mind, the engineers put it in there for a reason, so I'm going to make sure it goes back in there correctly. So now we have our cam chain guide in there. There it is, tucked in nice and tight. In the manual it says to make sure that it's bottomed out all the way, so as you can see I've tried to squeeze it in there as tight as I could. It's possible that the last people who did the shim on the valves possibly put a new one in, didn't put it in correctly, or it could have just worn over time. I talked to a buddy who's more knowledgeable than me about this kind of stuff, and he said it's not uncommon for these old sport bikes to chew up these type of cam guides and cam chain tensioner guides. So something to look out for. It's possible that it just sort of happened over time, and I got lucky and decided to do the work at a time when I could spot it and get it out before it caused me too much trouble. And before I put the top on, I'm going to give that cam guide a nice little coating of some slickery Lucas oil just to get it down there. I'm going to put a little bit on the cam chain to make sure that when I start it up the first time that there's a lot of nice lube on there. Nothing worse than having that dry rubber and possibly ripping that thing back out. So getting ready to make sure that it's a smooth start and that I don't have any more problems going down the road. So now that we have the cam guide put back in and everything's put back together, I am doing the obligatory oil strain just to check to make sure that nothing's coming out. As it looks like so far, I can't see anything coming through there. There's nothing, it seems like, that's come out of there, so it's a little bit hard to tell. All the little tiny chunks that were in there were there from before, but Yeah, it looks like all the big chunks are out. Of course, the question again is, where are they? My guess is they could be either stuck in little parts of the engine, little corners of the engine, or possibly they're, you know, up in the oil pickup screen. So, like I said, I'm gonna put the oil pan gasket on order, and as soon as it gets here, I'm gonna unfortunately have to rip the whole bottom end off of this thing because you know, the thought that my oil flow is being impaired by, you know, even a little bit is worrying. So do it for our safety and peace of mind. Just give it a nice coating on top and put a little bit on the cam chain to make sure that when I first start it up that it's nice and slippery and smooth. Nothing worse than having dry rubber. That's what she said.